I know we have people from all the different parts of the world, so thank you so much for joining. And I think we can start now. Brilliant. Well done. So this is the Climate Strategy and Nature-Based Solutions Anticipate the Revolution webinar. We are super excited to be joined by amazing speakers and panelists today, which you can see here on the camera already, and also an amazing list of guests attending. So brilliant minds to talk about such an important topic. I'm Liliana, and I'm going to be moderating the webinar today. And this webinar is being hosted by MORFO. And this initiative is really looking to bring the best minds in the industry together, which also, again, includes our audience and panelists, to discuss challenges, but also opportunities within the next revolution of nature-based solutions. For those of you who haven't heard of MORFO yet, do have a look. But MORFO brings large-scale reforestation solutions and is currently active in Brazil, French Guiana, Gabon, and soon, and you're hearing this first time here, and soon will also be active in Ghana and Ivory Coast. So some amazing projects happening in those places. So go have a look. This webinar is going to be very interactive, so don't think you're just going to sit down and watch. We're going to keep very much interacting with not only our panelists, but with everyone here watching the webinar today. So if at any point, and I mean at any point, there's a question you want to ask, drop it on the Q&A, and we will be answering questions throughout the webinar. So not only at the end, but throughout the webinar. We're also going to use the chat function for any comments, feedback. If you guys have research or studies that you want to share, which are relevant to the topic, again, use the chat function. This is really an initiative to bring together solutions, ideas within this topic. Okay, so we have here 4 amazing speakers joining us. We have Francisco Maciel, Senior Advisor, Forest and Climate Change VC Fund at KPTL. Liliana, Andrea, Martinez, Sarmiento, also joining us, Head of Project Implementation, Global Biodiversity at South Pole. Liliana, I'm very jealous. She was just saying that she's currently in Mexico enjoying Easter holidays. So thanks for joining us as well. Felipe Faria, who is the Brazil Director at Systemic, Latin and also Latin American Regional Manager and Partnerships at Partnerships for Forests. And finally, of course, we have Adrien Pages, CEO and co-founder at MORFO. So a really, really amazing set of minds here to share with you a lot of rich information today. So I would like to open the panel today and actually ask our panel to just really quickly introduce themselves. I think no one could do that better than each one of you. Just share a little bit what you've been up to, and we'll start from there. I'm going to stop sharing and just leave it so we can all come up in the big screen now. So I'm going to start with Francisco, who's here to my left on Zoom. Francisco, just a quick introduction.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Francisco Maciel. I'm originally from Brazil, but from a Portuguese family. And I have several hats and 30 years of track record in this industry, if you can call it industry and market. So I'm happy to be here. Today, the hat of the day is on KPTL as advisor for forests and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francisco. Felipe, you're next here on Zoom for me.
Hello, everybody. My name is Felipe Faria. I'm a civil engineer by training. I started my career with renewable power systems and now have been working the last 6 years with forest and food systems in Brazil, especially trying to accelerate and incubate nature-based solutions. It's a pleasure to be here. Currently, I lead this nature platform in Latin Systemic. Systemic is a system change company that supports institutions to achieve their net zero transition. It's a great pleasure to be here. And also I need to share that Francisco Maciel was my capoeira master when I was during the undergrad. So we have like a long-term relationship, and he didn't sell, but he's also a great guy in the sector, but also a capoeira master. So I need to complement his introduction.
Brilliant. I love learning that about panelists. So for those of you who don't know, capoeira is kind of Brazilian martial arts. Is that a way that I can explain it? So being a master in capoeira, I think we all need to watch out for Francisco here. Next, Adrien, please go ahead.
Thanks a lot. So me, I'm not doing capoeira. Too bad. I'm one of the co-founder of MORFO. Very happy to be here and to host everyone to have this very interesting discussions as MORFO is developing solutions to do ecosystem restoration at scale, and we are particularly focusing on tropical areas, and we are working and developing us a lot in Brazil, restoring Mata Atlantica, but also in Africa, and very glad to be here to talk about the challenges and solutions, because we really need a brilliant mind to exchange about it. There's many things to tackle.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Adrien. And finally, Liliana, please go for it.
Thank you. My name is Liliana Martinez. I'm Colombian. I am based in Bogota. I have been working with Southpole for more than 6 years now. But previous to Southpole, I had the opportunity to work with the government and with NGOs on market-based solutions. So yeah, I have been working on this topic for more than 15 years. And today I am trying to support companies and governments and different local communities on identify new opportunities related with market-based solutions, not only thinking on carbon, but also thinking on other options as biodiversity and as water. So yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be here and learn of all of you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much for all the panelists and all the introductions. It's great to see so many different backgrounds to talk about the same subject, different experiences. So I think it will bring up a very stimulating conversation. So before we go to our first question of the day, to our panel, I want to bring up a first poll to everyone watching, to our audience and our panelists as well. So Quentin, if you could please put the first, Quentin is part of the MORFO team, by the way, I'm going to be using his name a lot today. If you could please bring up the first poll question. And I think it's going to be a good one just to see what everyone thinks of the topic. If you just bear with us a second. So there you go. If everyone please could vote, in your opinion, what is the most significant challenge faced by nature-based solutions today? Is it scaling from pilot projects to larger projects, raising funds for such projects, proving the impact of nature-based solutions, or other? I think actually panelists cannot vote, so we'll wait to see what everyone has to answer on the topic. Okay, Quentin, you probably have a few replies already coming in. If you want to, if we can bring up the results. Brilliant. Interesting. So first place, scaling from pilot project to larger projects. So how to get things started from that sense. We have a few questions around that, so we're going to be looking into it. Raising funds, not surprising, also a top priority. Proving the impact of nature-based solutions. Third, whoever voted other, if you want to drop in what your challenge is on the chat and we can discuss that as well. But very interesting to see everyone's view on this question. And this ties in really nicely with our next question for our panelists. So I'm going to ask a question, and Quentin will also drop that question on the chat, so you will see what that question is. So the question to our panelists now: what are the most promising nature-based solutions for addressing climate change and biodiversity loss? Particularly, we're looking into forest ecosystems. So again, that's on the chat, but I'm just going to repeat it once more. What are the most promising nature-based solutions for addressing climate change and biodiversity loss, particularly in forest ecosystems? Francisco, I'm going to start with you first if you want to go for it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I've prepared an answer for that, beforehand, but I had the chance to see what my colleagues here were about to answer as well, and I've changed my answer after that. And because of course, I understand that Adrien is gonna present, MORFO's approach to it, and this is one of the good ones, using drones and data analytics. I understand those are one of the good ones, but I have to comment two things. First of all, is that there is no single solution for fits all. That's the first thing. We have to find several solutions. We do have very interesting solutions. I'm not quoting names over here, so I'm gonna tell overall areas. So biotechnology and biomimicry as areas to be looking at. But I would like to be provocative with my colleagues and say, I understand that we are about the time to change the way we understand forest, reforestation, and conservation. Because what we are trying to do on general terms right now is an old concept of restoration, to come back to something that it might be kind of lost in the way. We have to understand biodiversity in a different way, and the use of natives and non-native species, because we are going to find, as we are finding right now, areas where trying to come back to native species are kind of lunatic way to find the restoration of decades and decades after several things happen. So we are about time to change the very beginning of the concepts we are working with.
Brilliant. Thank you, Francisco. I love what you said there. Shouldn't be a one size fits all, but really looking at the different regions. That's really interesting. Liliana, would you like to add anything to the question?
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with Francisco that it's a great question, and it's not a unique solution. When I talk on MBS, I talk on the traditional way that we have been practiced. So we have options as preservation, restoration, and sustainable use. But I agree that we need to change our mindset and the way that we do the things on the field, how we involve the communities, how we already develop the solutions with them, not just to go there and try to explain how to do the things. No, I think that we need to work more in a collaborative way with the communities, but also thinking on connectivity. When we are thinking on forests, we need to understand that it's not just forest there. We have wetlands, we have other type of ecosystem that could contribute to the health of the areas. So we need to think on, yeah, I am working on this specific area, but how we are creating a big impact on a landscape scale and what it means really related with other kind of ecosystems that are present there. Additionally, I just want to mention finally that you could find different options in a local, regional, or national level, depending on who is managing or who is leading the intervention. But it not means that one is better than other. It means that you are trying to do the best with the resources that you have, but additionally with the understanding what is happening there. So if you have the opportunity to work in a national level, probably you need to have an umbrella overview. But if you are thinking on a local or with a specific community, you need to think how to have an answer for this local challenge. So yeah, it's a scale, it's connectivity, yeah, and it's different options.
Brilliant, great answer. A lot of food for thought there. Thank you, Liliana. Adrien, do you want to go next on that and follow up on that?
Yes, for sure. In fact, what I believe also is that we really need to have very different approaches in order to be able to tackle all the challenges that we have. Like Liana said, in fact, if we want a very local approach, that in some cases it will be way more adapted. We should, of course, do it. In some other cases, we really need to see large scale because we have an emergency and we have a need for scale. So we need solutions that are able to tackle such challenges. And for that, it's kind of industrial level, but it doesn't mean that you forget to have this very local understanding or citizen knowledge that is needed in order to be able to restore our forest and our ecosystems. Because in fact, it's very true that at MORFO we are focusing on forest, but because there is a big emergency on forest, but there is a big emergency on almost everything. So it's very important to restore everything. But it's also very important to value everything. And for now, forest has been valued a lot, which also means explain why we are working so much on it. And we need to find another way to value them. I think what is really important right now is that if we really want to tackle, and this is true, I think, for all nature-based solutions, is that we need knowledge and we need science to be able to, science and citizen knowledge to be able to really understand and to also think out of the box. So exactly what was talking about Francisco, because sometimes you need to do things that are not that logical. And also what we need is that we need tools, so technological tools to really be able to scale and to get data. And this is really important. And whatever the case that you are using, so even like in order to provide and to help very local communities, you can use blockchain. I mean, it makes sense and it allows to be very local. And this can be a good solution. So we really need to be open-minded. And I think we are at the very start of a lot of more solutions. And our main role is to really understand them and to be efficient on the field. Because in the end, what we want is to restore and protect our ecosystems.
Perfect. Thank you, Adrien. Very interesting. I think, as Liliana also mentioned, that change of mindset to really look into all of the solutions I can bring to that final goal. Brilliant answer. And then Felipe, if you could just finalize with your thoughts on this question.
Thank you, Liliana. I believe that we can divide the problem also in two, right? Conservation and restoration. When we look at the conservation, the most promising technologies will be around like reduce the cost, improve the standards and the quality of monitor, reporting and verification, but also add value to the standing forests like through bioeconomy, biotech. When we look to the restoration, the biggest problem is the cost of restoration so far, right? If we take into account projects that only are looking for carbon through restoration, it's very difficult to build a feasible project, right? So we have some challenges of how can we drive those costs down. So in terms of better identification of areas, increase the VCU yields, decrease implementation and operational costs. So there is like a big space around those areas. However, we also always need to think about that our solutions need to be people-centered, right? The problem of deforestation, the problem of land degradation is also related to people, right? So it's not only about technology, it's about cultural aspects, specificities of each region, physical aspects, the governments, the local actors, they are there. And I believe that we don't need to only think about super difficult tech advanced solutions, right? There is a big space to implement solutions that are already there. And I would like to give like one example for Brazil, which is the cattle sector. Right? Nowadays, the cattle pasture lands occupy around 150 hectares of land in Brazil, from which around 60%, 8 million hectares, have some level of degradation. improved pasture management is a feasible solution, right? And if you can stack like also forest products and intensify and diversify the production, you can go from a land use that is emitting carbon to a land use that is sequestering carbon, using technologies that are already proven, right? So why this is not happening, right? Because this is happening in the case in Brazil for the farmers, big farmers that have access to capital and can do this transformation, because in the end, it's like intensive capital transformation, but also, so the problem that we need to crack is like, how can we transfer and create enabling conditions to access the technological packages, the finance, and the market access to small and medium farmers. Agroforestry systems is another big avenue for like improvement, right? The way that we have been doing agroforestry is super dispersed with low technology use. So we need to increase a lot our knowledge and develop a technological package. Also clustered activity, bring economics of scales. It's also about planning, right? Like Liliana was saying, the landscape approach that we need to have in mind. So yeah, that's kind of it for this question.
Thanks, Felipe. You raised some really good challenges there, looking at farmers as well. But one thing that where you started is talking about local communities, and we have actually a very interesting question here in our Q&A related to that, receiving quite a few votes. So guys, again, anyone in the audience, if you want to ask questions, go for it. So the question is, and I have a little bit of a cheat sheet here, when we look at emerging markets, if we don't consider people in the equation, then it's probably not going to work, which I think a few of you here mentioned that already. So how do you guys include impacting people, changing initiatives so that they can embrace nature-based solutions and other solutions to scale willingness and adoption at scale? So anyone here would like to comment on that question or have any thoughts on that question? Feel free to volunteer. Adrien?
Yes, of course. I think maybe one mistake that we should not do when we are talking about the people is to first consider that they don't have the willingness to change. I think most of the people that we know understand or can see the problem, but they don't really see like how to get to the solution, or the path is difficult to go there. So maybe the two main things to do is first to bring a solution and to make it easy. If it's way more easier to change, it can help. The second thing is in fact to create incentives. So, and to create incentives, we need, for me, we need two things. We need first to prove that there can be an advantage. So we were talking about improved cattle management. In fact, if you do improved cattle management, your land is gonna be better. If you plant trees on your land, you can have more water and you can restore your soils. So in the end, if you have your cattle, it's gonna be better for that. So we should show to people like, oh, all these restorations and protecting our environment can be a benefit for everyone. This is really important, I think. And the second one is to get a legal structure. And this is also a role of the states, different states, to really get some direct incentives to help people change and to make it more easier for them.
Sorry, I was on mute. Anyone else would like to add on that?
Can I try to complement? Okay, thanks. What we are trying to do is understand what is the real benefit of the project for the communities. I mean, if we are talking about climate change, probably mitigation in the communities is not the real benefit. They need more things related with adaptation or with the biodiversity protection. So it's very important to understand for them what is important, what are their needs, and how we can connect their needs with our solution or with the solution that we have. probably sometimes it's not easy because they in different countries they used to receive a lot of projects at the same time in the area, and sometimes they don't connect what is the difference between one or another. But the idea is to build the project with them and to really demonstrate that this needs to be sustainable even after the project finish. So it's their project, it's not our project. So probably these kind of things are messages that are important with the communities, and the idea is that they take the power and manage their own project. Yeah.
Brilliant. Felipe, go for it. You raise your hands as well.
So I agree, it's not we don't have like an easy solution, but I would like to share 2 examples that we have been working in the recent past. The first one is around the production of native rubber for a shoe company that tries to produce the most sustainable shoe in the world. And they source native rubber from Acre in Brazil. And we support them to incubate a new sourcing approach, which includes the creation of protocol that was based under a bottom-up approach where the associations, cooperatives developed by themselves the protocol that the families would need to follow. And also we support them to create the MRV platform. And what they do very differently is that they pay the commodity price for rubber, but they stack into the price a series of benefits related to the payment for environmental and social sectors, would multiply the commodity value from 3 to 5 times the ton of the rubber, which makes a huge difference for the farmers. The second example is related to this cocoa sector in Pará, right? Cocoa, the industry as a whole has been working under a pre-competitive approach to boost smallholder production of cocoa through agroforestry systems. And what they have been doing is organizing pre-competitive but competitive approaches also to allow farmers to do this expansion, which means solve the issue of the technical assistance, the credit, the access to credit, but also bring premiums to the production and increase the share benefits. What is important to have in mind, and what in my experience has been like a success and what requires a mindset transformation, is that value chains need to cooperate more, right? They need to cooperate more in the pre-competitive way. And when I say pre-competitive way, anything that you can organize in a sector that is not related to price, because this is a problem, but you can generate a lot of advances. It created enabling conditions for that also. So these 2 examples show very well for 2 different sectors, conservation of forests in one side and restoration of how those value chains can cooperate and share the risks, costs, and the benefits of these. But these require this transformation of mindset, which is we need to cooperate more, which is a challenge in many ways, because between these nodes also you have the commercial relations that also bring like the kind of conflict inside. So there is not an easy solution, but we have examples.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing real examples. Really, really interesting. We're getting lots of messages, guys. For anyone looking to ask more questions, make sure you ask it on the Q&A and not directly to me, so we can get people voting as well what their burning questions are. Okay, we have a few more there, but I just want to direct another question here to our panelists. Of course, we'll be talking about nature-based solution, but my question is really about the role of technology. So what is the role of technology in the expansion of nature-based solutions? Francisco, do you want to start?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, I understand what we do have. One thing in mind is that, you know, and it was some way behind the answers here is that, and I understand everybody here knows that we are under a climate change crisis, okay? So we have to scale up is a way to speed it up. You know, in this sense, we don't have much time to make errors. So the technology is a very, and the bet on technology, right, I would say more the bet on the technology as one of the approaches that we do need right now. It's a key one related to the way that we can speed it up. And I understand that we should mention that most of the times we think on technology, we are talking about data. And this is something that it's very, very, very important, because right now we are still working on data that are produced once a year on reports, and everything else, you know, works all over the year, you know, on online and keeps on going. So the very first thing is technology is data. And once you develop technology from data, you can do it with BI, you can do it with AI, that's on the fashion of the day. But, you know, in fact, you can scale it up in an exponential way. It's not just acceleration, but the acceleration of the acceleration. And one technology drives to another one. So it's something that we don't know how to do it right now in this, specifically on this area, but as a humanity, but I understand that's the correct bet.
Thank you very much, Francisco. Very interesting to hear that side of the role of technology from a data monitoring point of view, which is so important. Just to remind everyone, the question I just asked is also on the chat. So what is the role of technology in expansion of nature-based solutions, in case you missed it? Liliana, would you like to go next, please?
Yeah, for sure. Technology and innovation could play an incredible role on the expansion of NBS, but technology needs to be open and accessible for all the people. Data, as Francisco mentioned, it's very important, but how to use the data, who could use the data, how we could share the data with communities and support them on making decisions using this information. I have an example with one MRB system that we were developing for a Red Plus project on the Honduras region, on Mosquitia region, and we were trying to identify what are our high conservation values for biodiversity. So we were discussing with communities different options, and one of them was fish, because we were working on a mangrove ecosystem. But why we decide to monitor this fish? Because this fish is used for the fishers to fish every day and eat this kind of fish, even they sell this fish. So this information is not just useful for the Red Plus project, it's useful for the daily life. So for them, it's a benefit of the project to monitor what is happening with this population. So these are the kind of information that we need to come back to the communities and share with them the data. And now that we have, as Francisco said, we don't know how we could develop the technology, but how this is used for the right people. This is probably my message.
Love it. So how do you make all of this accessible to everyone, all the data accessible to everyone? Adrien, would you like to go next?
Yes, for sure. I think what is really important to consider is that if we stay the way that we are staying right now, we will not be able to scale and to increase our quality in restoration, but in every types of actions that we undertake. So we really need technology because we need to go fast, and this is really important. However, what is also very important to understand is like what is why do we need technology? Like, for instance, when I started MORFO with my co-founders, I realized like a lot of companies in Europe, but also in Brazil, are working on how to save the world and how to restore ecosystem, but they're only doing data. And I mean, it's very important to do data, of course, but you also need to be on the field. You also need to be with communities, with local people. You also need to get your hands dirty and to work on the ground. And this is very important. And I think like technology should really be connected to the real world and also bring real solutions on the ground. And this is really important. And the second thing is that technology should not replace what is already ongoing, but should really complement. And this is very important because, for instance, if you talk about restoring forests, you already have a lot of people working and restoring forests. So you don't want to replace those people. You want to create value for them. And the idea is more to say, okay, so until now you have been doing like this volume and this quality, and I'm gonna give you the tools to really increase the volume, increase the quality, but still valorize what you are doing. And this is really important, and technology should be created for that. And this is really important. Otherwise, if we don't value people, if we don't connect to people that are already existing, we might not go in the good directions, and in the end, all this work will be done for nothing. So it's very important to see, I think, technology like that.
Brilliant, Adrien. Thank you so much. There's actually, just before we go to Felipe, there's actually a question from someone in the audience, Loan, and the question is very much related to that, Adrien. So if you could just complement. So in the country you're established, do you guys see an increase of public support to enhance and provide frameworks to nature-based solution? Is there any public awareness raising? So I guess in what you guys are already doing through MORFO, how you guys are increasing that public support, from local community to establish what you're doing from a nature-based solutions.
Well, I think that like where we are working, like you see that a lot of people are really waiting for new tools. Now, for instance, the NGOs that we are working with in Brazil, they are really happy to see that there is new technology, new tool, new means to increase the scale. Of course, they are also very dubitative, and it's a good thing. I think they are prudent because it's important to take care of those new technology and to try and to see if it works before to get to the scale. So I really like this. And this is how you can build a very strong collaboration. But they really need it because right now they're not capable of the scale that they are willing to. And there is a lot of money, but there isn't enough people and enough means to plant, which is a bit kind of a paradox.
Thank you very much, Adrien. And Felipe, I haven't forgotten you. So still on, what is the role of technology in the expansion of nature-based solutions?
I would say that it's huge. It's huge. And there is like a lot of space for improvement in technologies for traceability and monitoring. It's still possible to do things better, drive costs down. Also in terms of productivity, I would say when you say about productivity, we can work with the genetic selection of seeds and seedlings, create the best combination of varieties that will go better and faster for a given product or service that you are looking for. So there is still a lot of need for research around those topics, and also around the sharing benefits, right, of those approaches. We are talking a lot about how to be people-centered, how you can create the financial mechanisms and the distribution mechanisms of those benefits. This is a huge also challenge that technology can help. So we're just starting. The problem that we don't have a lot of time.
Brilliant, thanks, Felipe. I guess time and financing starts to become one of the biggest challenges when it comes to implementing the solutions, which is exactly what the next topic of our question and poll is going to be like, will be on. So financing of these projects. Quentin, please, can you show us the second question of the second poll, which is very much linked to this topic. So we're gonna get it up. I'm loving that we have so many questions coming up, guys. Thank you for that. I got it really quickly, the poll, but it disappeared. I don't know if it's going to show again. I've seen that some of you also answering on the chat. So an amount of $154 billion was invested in nature-based solutions in 2021. Nonetheless, what is the required increase to achieve the UN's climate targets by 2030? So do we still need to double it, triple it, quadruple it, or quintuple it? So this is actually a question that hopefully will make everyone realize the size and the amount needed here. So do you think it's double, triple, quadruple, or quintuple? That's a hard word to say. So get voting, guys, and we'll have a look at the votes, see if you guys are sharp on your finance questions. Just waiting a few more seconds. We have more questions coming in. Great. Going to be answering more of those very soon. Brilliant. So quintuple. A lot of you are looking to quintuple. So that's brilliant. So Quentin, do you want to share the answer on the chat? Just so everyone can have a look and see what the answer is. And we'll move on from this one. So it's triple, guys. I had it written somewhere here, but I lost it. Thank you, Quentin. So it's triple the amount. So everyone, well done. If you pick triple, I know it feels like we need to raise 5 times more, but at least it's not that much. It's bang on in the middle, triple. So there's a lot of work there still. Someone is asking for the references, so we can share references as well with you. The MORFO team will get in touch with you, Carolina, to share with you the references. No worries. So let's move on. There are many questions in the public, but I just want to ask another question to the panel, and Quentin will also share this in the chat with everyone. So what are the challenges and opportunities? And this is relevant to some of the questions coming up from our audience as well. So what are the challenges and opportunities associated with financing and scaling up nature-based solutions in forests, particularly when focused in developing countries? So what are the challenges and opportunities associated with financing and scaling up nature-based solutions in forests, particularly in developing countries? Francisco, do you want to give it a go in answering?
Yeah, thank you. And I will start with the opportunity that's, it might be easier to start with the opportunities that are again, all related to the exponential, the opportunity to be exponential on NBS and on development markets. But I will face the challenges, and I will comment something, related to the previous question. First of all is the taxonomy. We as humanity, we know how to invest in infrastructure, we know how to invest in economic development, we know how to invest in innovation, but actually we don't know how to invest in green finance. If you take, for instance, the green tax, we are talking about mainly seeds company or Series A companies that showing that we are right in the beginning of it, and we have several years to come to learn how this kind of private investment goes. And even if you go to the public investment, it's quite the same. We do quite well how to know, we do quite well how to invest in infrastructure. We don't know what's actually the relation, on the investment side of a green infrastructure, or if a green infrastructure is part of the infrastructure, or how we put this thing together. And when you are going to talk to the guys that actually is going to apply for it, they don't know as well. So this is a very first challenge. The second one is that when you're talking about development countries, I'm going to take a comment that Felipe, my friend, just passed through. He said in one of his essays said the feasibility of the project. Well, when you look at the feasibility of the project and the projects you are talking about, or the activities we are talking about in development countries, you have to have the investors with the willingness to do so. When you take, for instance, Brazil with 13.75% of the national rate of interest, or even 5% in the US, you have the funds answering for that, and then you don't have, such a projects, in NBS, or you have to work a lot to, to have some shadow, and covering this kind of interest rate. And the last one is the crisis mindset. We want the solutions, now. And we are talking about things that are starting. We are talking about, we are not talking about coming back to the, from the first question. We are not talking about landscaping. We are talking about ecosystems and economies. And this starts with people in, you implement with people. And we are, it's completely different from the crisis mindset that you keep on pushing 1.5 to 2 degrees, and you have the implementation right now, and you have the owners of the money, the public money from EU or whatever, saying, I want to see the results. And so this is kind of hard, comparing with the with the time we are now, and it's another challenge.
Great, thank you. And actually your answer, Francisco, and this question very much also answers Idelcia's Valentin question that came from the public. So I hope that helps, Idelcia, and thanks for that, Francisco. Liliana, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Francisco. It's better to start from the opportunity. So for me, I identify that we have willingness to participate from the communities. They are interested to do something to protect nature now. And we have, at the same time, willingness to finance from the private sector. So we just need to connect. It's a moment to act. And I agree that it's an urgent moment that we need to really do things to speed these interventions. Other opportunity is now you could find a different private initiatives on the ground working, and with a lot of lesson learned, but at the same time you have a lot of local projects developed now. So how we can start to scaling up these kind of opportunities that already had lesson learned. Financial gap for the developing countries, so they need the support of other countries and the private sector. But related with the challenge, I identify land tenure as the first one, and it's very difficult because in developing countries, the land tenure is not easy to find and to have an answer related with this topic. The second one is data per country. Not all the countries have the same data, and if they have, it's not easy to access to them. So you need to invest a lot of money on initial baselines and these kind of things, even if the government has information. Another challenge is transparency of data, how we can use that, and it's possible for different stakeholders to use the data, and public policies. Depending on the country, especially on developing countries, you could have like the space to develop these projects, or like a barrier to develop this one, because they don't know, and their public policy, their constitutions really define some regulations that you couldn't develop this kind of project. So for me, these are the challenges and opportunities.
Brilliant, thanks, Liliana. And I've seen, Adrien, you were nodding quite a bit there. Do you want to go next and compliment on the answer?
Yes, of course. I think what is really interesting from what we see right now is that we have a change of paradigm. So we are not valorizing the same things that we were valorizing before. And this is a good news, because we are now able to say, okay, we have local people with like ancestral knowledge, and that's something that we are going to value. We are going to protect that already exists, and this is valuable. So we are really maybe trying to go to an economy of construction and protection. And this is, I think, a very good opportunity, and we should put all our efforts in it. Another opportunity that I see that is really interesting is that more than an ecological and environmental causes, is that we have also a good opportunity through ecosystem restoration and other methodology to really bring a very high volume of investments in developing countries. and it's a very good opportunity, economical opportunity for them, and a way to recalibrate a little bit. And we can do this through this new market and this new booming economy. However, I still see challenges that are very important. For me, one very important challenge that is linked to transparency, to quality, to trust, is to have like more solutions and more actors, consolidated actors that are such as, for instance, Sospol, that are recognized and that are able to lead the market. And this is something that we lack at this moment because it's very young. And we also need more legal structure. And this is a global challenge. So it's very difficult to give a legal structure like European Union is working on it right now. But I think it's quite challenging, and I don't know how it will end up. And we really need to have this cohesion, and this is very, very challenging, I think. And the last thing is that in order to continue our efforts, we also need a massive investment in research, and not only private sector. We also need public sector to be like really focused on it, and we also really need to valorize what has been done and what will be done in the public sector. For instance, at MORFO, we are working a lot with scientists in France, in Brazil, in Africa. They know a lot of things. As they are really able to help us, we really need to valorize this and to help them develop and implement the projects and their visions. This is much needed right now. And this is, I think, something on which we have a big, big lack. And it's also, so in the end, it's a very big challenge.
Thanks so much, Adrien. Really good points there on financing, on research and development, and using local scientists, and that's great. Thank you so much. Felipe, we have just a few minutes left, but over to you.
So I really like this Adrien's final point, and I would like to highlight that, right? How we create and develop value chains in the past, right? There was a lot of public investment to create enabling conditions. And what is kind of crazy with these nature-based solutions is that people want to solve all the problems like magic, and we need a lot of public funding to research, to create enabling conditions and advance and create a technological package. And just as an example for Brazil, what was soy in Brazil, right? Nobody believed that we could produce soy in Cerrado 35 years ago. Today, after tons of investments, we have the best technological package that keep increasing productivity, right? So then the same mindset should be applied to nature-based solutions, and also reminding to big public finance and create the policy architectures and frameworks to allow and develop the incentives for that. But just to finalize, in terms of, I believe there is a lot of room for, again, the challenge costs. We need to decrease costs for land acquisition and leasing, the cost of restoration for land preparation, seeding, planting, everything is needed. And also construction management to deliver the challenge on time and on budget. Sometimes people forget that in case of restoration, your window of opportunities is 3 months within a year, where you have like your ideal time for planting if you don't need to be dependent on irrigation. Also, the yield of the increase of the productivity, and like Francisco said, the cost of finance is key now, right? It's a big barrier for advancing around that. And finally, another big challenge is like the governance, right? I feel that we cracked the problem when we want to do 250 farmers pilot, right? But when we need to scale up, it's another challenge. And I would give the example of the cocoa one that I brought, right? We did a very successful 250 farmer pilot. We win a world award around nature-based solution, where we bring this value chain approach with the trade with chocolate companies, cooperatives, banking systems. But when you need to scale up and you go to another region, it's not copy pasting, right? Something that was very successful in one region is very hard to be applied in a region that is not far away. But the conditions, the environment is different. Even if you are in the same biome, same region, kind of region, it's not copy paste, unfortunately.
Great. Those are great last few words to kind of wrap up our webinar today. Before I just go to final notes from our panelists, I just want to share with everyone here at the webinar today a few housekeeping notes. So firstly, if you enjoyed the conversation today and the information shared, the team at MORFO is going to share the link to subscribe to MORFO's newsletter. I highly recommend. Very interesting and insightful. But also, if you have more questions on anything on the topic, there is a barcode here to your left where you can scan and get in touch with MORFO's team directly, so do so. And MORFO is also going to be part of quite a few events coming up, from Web Summit to Rio, and you'll see all of the different countries and dates that MORFO is going to be attending. So do come say hello if you are also attending any of these events. So I just want to wrap up now and just say massive thank you. I'm just going to try to stop sharing. Massive thank you to our brilliant panelists today. I think we heard so many different point of views, and also so many things that everyone is on the same page. So it'll be interesting to see how we can take the next steps from this conversation. There were a lot of more questions coming through, and I had a lot more questions as well, but this is such an important topic, and obviously we wouldn't have enough time. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you to your audience as well for participating. We have another webinar coming up, and you're hearing this here for the first time, and I'm just going to bring it up. So if you guys want to attend our next webinar, which will be in May, and we're going to share the details with who attended first on how to build your carbon and biodiversity portfolio. That's our the next webinar coming up, so do be clued up. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see everyone next time. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you. Ciao, Felipe.